Hi. So for the second part of the week, we're going to look at standard form of linear equations. So I just kind of wanted to throw in something to go back over what we've been doing. So solving, what you want to do is make sure you draw your line down. Keep yourself organized. And I'm going to simplify this before I start solving anything. So first thing I want to do is distribute. Now when I've got a -6 in front like that, that's the same thing as a -6. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down my -2. And then -6 times 4v is -24v. And -6 times -1 is +6. So I'm going to bring down my other side. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to combine like terms on the left. So that's these two. So 6 plus -2 is going to give me 4. And then minus 24v equals 25 minus 3v. So I need to get my variables on the same side. Does not matter which direction you move them, but I'm going to move them left. So I'm going to add 3v to both sides, which bring down my 4 will give me 4 minus 21v equals 25. Then I want to move the 4, get rid of that. So the opposite of 4 is -4. And don't lose your negative here. I'm going to end up with -21v equals 21. So to get v by itself, divide. Make sure you're dividing by -21. Those cancel out because it would just be 1. So v equals -1 because 21 divided by -21 is -1. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. So also just wanted to quickly review the slope-intercept form stuff. So for the slope, if I'm finding it from an equation, remember that it's y equals mx plus b, where m is slope and b is your y-intercept. So my slope is -2, or just you could say m equals -2. My y-intercept is the point 0, -6. And then to find my x-intercept, I have to plug in 0 for y. So if I solve this, I add 6 to both sides. And I'm going to divide by -2 to get -3. So my x-intercept is the point -3, 0. Cool. All right. To find those things from a graph is much simpler because I just have to look at the graph. So my slope, or m, well, let's do the intercepts first. So let's do y-intercept. It's going to be where it touches the y-axis. Remember, y to the sky. And that is going to be the point 0, 2. My x-intercept is going to be here where it touches the x-axis, so the point 1, 0. And then my m is my rise over run. So I'm going to draw a little triangle. I went down 2, so -2, and I went over 1. So that's going to be -2 over 1, which is just -2. So it didn't ask for the equation. But let's write the equation anyway. My equation would be -2x plus 2. Cool. Okay, so standard form. Standard form of a linear function is going to be given to you like ax plus by equals c. The reason why standard form is used a lot is because it's generally very easy to find intercepts from. Because if I plug in 0 for y, all I have to do is divide. Boom, you got your intercept. If I plug in 0 for x, that goes away. And all I have to do is divide, and boom, I got my y-intercept. The trickier part is figuring out the slope, but it's pretty much like you can solve it for slope-intercept form to find that, but basically you can also just use a formula where your slope, or m, is going to be the opposite of a over b. So when doing it, we'll just do that, the opposite of a over b. Boom. Slope. Not too hard. I mean, it's like you can't just look at it and know it, but you know, use a little brain power and you got it. So for these, we're gonna find, once again, we're just doing the same thing. It's just standard form. So to find my slope, I'm gonna do negative a over b. Now, if there is not a number in front of either variable, there's no coefficient. That's just like having a 1 there. So if it makes you more comfortable, just like write a 1 in so you know what you're working with. So sorry, I lost my train of thought. When I do this, my slope is just negative a over b, which is negative 1 over 3. That doesn't simplify, so I'm done. Slope. Ta-da. To find my, so that's a. To find my x-intercept, y-intercept, I'm going to want to plug in 0 for x. Now, anything times 0 is 0. So that essentially just makes that x term disappear. So to figure it out, I'm going to do 3y equals 9, because if I plug in it's the same thing as saying 1 times 0 plus 3y equals 9. But that's an extra step. You don't have to write that out. You could just jump to 3y equals 9. Well, if I divide both sides by 3, y equals 3. So the y-intercept is going to be the point 0, 3. Okay. And then finally, for my x-intercept, going back to my equation, I'm just going to plug in 0 for y, which just makes that y term disappear. So it's just poof, gone. So x equals 9. I mean, technically you could divide by 1, but any number divided by 1 is itself. So it is going to be the point 9, 0. Cool. Okay. The second part, or the second one, same thing. For my slope, I'm going to take the opposite of a, so the number with x, divided by b, or the number with y. Negative 2 over 3. That's my slope. For the y-intercept, I'm going to make the x term poof disappear by plugging in 0. So I get 3y equals negative 24. If I divide both sides by 3, I get negative 8. So it's the point 0, negative 8. And then last but not least, my x-intercept. I'm going to plug in 0 for y, just make that y term disappear. And divide by both sides by 2. So those will cancel, and I'll get x equals negative 12. So it's the point negative 12, 0. Hopefully that's not too bad for you guys. The only other thing you really need to be able to do with standard form is you need to be able to convert it to slope-intercept form. Mainly because if you're graphing a line, graphing from slope-intercept form is so much simpler. Sometimes your intercepts will be fractions, so it's kind of hard to actually plot those points. So plus this is just a good skill to have to manipulate variables and whatnot. Anyway, so I'm going to draw my line down because when solving things, I always like to stay organized. It's complicated because people get confused with variables and not variables, but it's always the same, like 2 steps. You're always going to move your x's to the right. So the opposite of 5x is negative 5x. Now, one thing so many people want to do is they want to say, oh, negative 4 minus 5, negative 9, boom. But That's not true. The 4 does not have an x while the 5 does. They don't actually go together. When I'm writing this, I'm going to write one after the other, negative 5x minus 4, because those terms, they don't go together. They are not like terms. One has an x, one doesn't. So you cannot combine them. Then I'm going to divide everything by negative 2. So you have to divide everything by negative 2. This side it'll cancel. And negative 5 divided by negative 2 does not divide evenly, so I'm going to keep that as a fraction. But the negatives do cancel each other out. So it's just 5 halves x. And then negative 4 divided by negative 2 is just positive 2. Once you have the y by itself, you are done. So I'll do one more. Super. All right. So same 2 steps. I'm going to move my x's to the right. So I'm going to minus 10x, minus 10x. Cancel those out. Bring down my 9y. And remember, the 13 and the 10, they don't go together because one has an x and one doesn't. So I'm going to just list them out one after the other. Then divide everything by 9. So negative 10 and 9 don't divide evenly, so I'm going to keep that as a fraction. Why did I write y? It's supposed to be x. And then 13 and 9 also doesn't divide out evenly, so I'm just going to leave that as a fraction. That does happen. I specifically chose this so that you won't get freaked out if you end up with fractions. But do write them as fractions instead of with decimals, because you don't want to round off a decimal if you don't have to. Anyway, that is the second half of the week. So hopefully this stuff makes sense to you. If not, feel free to ask questions. Definitely bring questions up during the live meet, and I will see you guys later.